Hello, everybody. I'm John. This is JP Strategic Investments. And today, once again, I had the pleasure of speaking with Patriot One Technology CEO, Peter Evans. We're going to talk about a lot of things related to the stock market, the company, and sales, and anything else that I think investors might want to know. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. All right, Peter Evans, thank you for coming on the channel again. How are you today?
I'm great. Did you remember to hit the recording button this time, John?
I did.
Excellent. I'm great. It's good to see you, John. And I actually owe you a thank you and an apology. We've had this scheduled 2-3 times now, and I've had to keep postponing and postponing. That's on me. It's been very, very busy. I know you guys have heard me say it's been very busy 500 times. I sound like a broken record, but it truly has been. So thank you for taking time out of your Saturday afternoon, John, to do this. I appreciate you taking the time on behalf of all our investors. So here we are on a Saturday afternoon. Let's jump in.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time yourself. So first question, as far as the financials go, you've talked about revenue and backlog and how currently, it's early on and we may see large fluctuations in those, especially revenue. But as more and more contracts come in, we should start to see maybe trends and a stabilization of those trends. And so can you give us any extra context as far as, what we should be looking at as far as revenue and backlog and what you expect to see maybe with those trends?
Yeah, there's sort of 2-3 ideas here I want to kind of get across, John, so bear with me. The first one is something we've talked about before around how we look at bookings. And while we've talked about it before, let me reiterate it to make sure people understand it. The first is focus when you look at our financials. My advice to everyone would be look at the bookings number, okay? Bookings are going to fall into a couple of different categories or subsets. There's those contracts that are signed where a customer has said, yes, I'm going to buy this, but I'm going to buy over a subscription or SaaS-based model. So while we may sign a deal initially up front and we'll recognize those bookings, they may not be actually paying us immediately. They'll be paying us over 36 months. Mm-hmm. So we'll be recognizing the revenue over time. And so we've got that bookings backlog, they'll slowly convert to more and more revenue monthly, okay? The second is that we have a number of contracts where we do with customers. We've got one I'm thinking of I'm just on the phone with my sales guy before this call, where we talk about a try and buy contract, where the customer wants to go do a pilot and we orchestrate the contract whereby if the pilot is successful, it immediately converts over to a purchase for the rest of the venue, okay? And we're very specific in writing up what the specifications are that are the criteria for success for the pilot, okay? And we won't enter into that contract if we know we can't deliver on those criteria. And we also use that as a way to validate, is this customer serious? Because if they're not willing to sign up to that and they're just kicking the tires, well, I got 50 other customers I'd rather go do real work with than distract my company on kicking the tires. So the interesting thing is when those contracts are signed, we'll recognize those as a kind of a bookings backlog. There's almost like there's a little asterisk against it, recognizing there is this condition of having to get through the pilot. So that's going to put a different kind of bookings marker, if you will, onto the financials. Okay. So that's important to understand. I would always recommend people look at the bookings numbers. Okay. Now, when it comes to trends and forecasting, which I think is part of your question, John, I would love to be able to say our forecast is X, Y, Z. And we're going to start moving, as you'll see, with the next financial call that we'll do, and the next one and the next one after that. We've hired RBMG as our kind of IR organization. They're very good, and you'll start to see the trend in terms of the investor calls be much more of what you'd see with a typical earnings call, and starting to layer in more and more forecasting where it's appropriate. Okay. The challenge with forecasts right now is the world's on fire. Let's face it, we've got Ukraine, we've got incredible inflation. Shanghai completely shut down, 25 million people, and there's so many boats off the coast, it looks like a whole different continent, right? And so there's some of these very large macro trends that are affecting the stock market, they're affecting the ability to deliver to customers and things like that. And so I don't want to put out forecasts that all of a sudden something happens like, I don't know, Russia goes into Poland and the market collapses. And, all of a sudden I put out something that isn't fair to our investors. So I'm conscious of trying to provide accuracy in forecasting, but it's hard to do that right now.
Makes sense. Well, I appreciate any information that you can give us on that. As far as what I want to talk about now, your most recent contract win with Oakview Group at Moody Center. Obviously, for investors, the biggest thing, the most exciting thing about that contract is the future potential with Oakview Group, as they own or are involved with a large number of venues. Can you give us maybe a little more context around how we should think about Patriot One's relationship with Oakview Group and anything about the significance of this particular contract?
Yeah. So first off, we have a healthy relationship with Oakview Group, and it's growing and expanding in a very professional way on a continuous basis, and we enjoy that. We're nurturing that. It's been an organization that I've been targeting for a while. I just ran into Tim Lewicki last week at the Moody Center. I was there for the Dave Matthews concert. And it's a very healthy, good business partnership. I quite like it and how it's going. For Tim to come over and take 5 minutes to pull me aside, introduce me to all the executives that he had there that he was touring the stadium with, and then introduce them to Patriot One. That speaks to the kind of the integrity and trust that we built in the relationship as a partnership. So I like what we're doing with Oakview, specifically with Moody. It was a funny event with Moody because we'd planned to deploy into their VIP entrance. Middle of last year, we had that conversation, and we're still working through things like sports league approvals and things like that. The Moody Center will be hosting some NBA games, so there's those kinds of nuances we had to be aware of. And I got a call from them out of the blue 3 weeks before the venue opened,
Mhm.
and they asked me, like, "Can you check our math on something?" And this is the math I'd been giving them for 6 months. And they basically went through the math of their cost for running their walkthrough metal detectors, the cost for running us. And they said, "So we're going to save a truckload of money, right?" And I said, "Well, I'm glad you guys are finally listening. But not only that, your patrons are going to be just like walking in." We've done a bunch of events with them right now. It's a programmatic rollout right now. And I'll explain that in a minute. There's a couple of people taking shots. "Oh, is this a prototype?" Guys, it's going to be the full stadium. It's going in intelligently and agreed to phases with Moody, right? So there's still some walkthroughs there right now. They still have some hand ones for secondary screening. Dave Matthews, I'll be there for the Eagles this coming week, which will be fabulous. Irving Azoff's famous, favorite band, right? And it's a nice opportunity. It proved out the ROI. It became we were right there on the grand opening with all the press, all the media. This has been Irving's project for 10 years to build this stadium. For him to put us in his grand opening speaks volumes about the quality of what we can do with Oakview Group. So we're pleased, right? We delivered initially because of the short time frame, right? We had to deliver them some prototype products, right? They were very happy. In fact, I think one of the nicest pieces of information I got from them was they said they polled all of their fans, all the patrons on the first night on everything, the food, the ticketing, ingress, ease of, getting around the stadium, all these kinds of things. And they said that ingress and Patriot One came out number one of all the things the fans were polled for, 97% satisfaction. So
Wow.
incredibly, yeah, great case study that we're going to build up around that and get out in the marketplace.
Nice. That is great information to hear, and especially to me, the recommendation or at least the introduction of you to those executives. I know when it comes to business, if you introduce somebody, if you recommend somebody, you're kind of putting your reputation on the line. So if he's willing to do that for you guys, that speaks volumes.
Well, it's also not lost on me when I looked in Tim's eyes and other folks' eyes, like Mike Downing, and they said, "We're banking on you." And so, yeah, I've lost a few nights of sleep making sure that we're delivering really, really well.
Yeah, that's great. The next one here, we've heard a lot about the DHS SAFETY Act and how the process is taking a little longer than you probably would have liked and the normal just in general. Can you maybe give us a little extra context as far as how important that certification or designation is to your target market? And maybe some things like, for example, would NBA or NHL league approval be possible without DHS SAFETY Act designation or certification?
It's a good question, and there's a little bit of complex nuance to this. So first, it's important to understand that certain leagues have DHS certification, but not all their teams do. As an example, NBA, MLB, and NFL are DHS SAFETY Act certification, right? Certified. But if you look at MLB, only 11 of the 32 teams actually have it, and some of them will never be able to get it for all sort of reasons, like the stadium is on land that's rented from somebody else, and that somebody else is unwilling to do things like change roads to meet DHS SAFETY Act requirements. DHS SAFETY Act is more than just our technology. It's everything from access controls, training, physical bollards so cars can't be driven into the building with bombs, all sorts of things. And so we're just one little part of it. The good news is I can get Safety Act certification faster than those stadiums can. And in fact, on a call I had last week on Wednesday or Thursday with one of the chief security officers, one of the leagues, I've got a bet with him that I will get Safety Act certification faster than he will. And one of us owes each other a nice steak dinner. Okay. And so anyhow, DHS is a little bit complex. Now, there's a couple important things to note. When you get DHS Safety Act certification, you can get it at one of three levels: DTED, designation, or certification. The primary difference between those levels is how long you've had your product out in the market with how many customers. A little, more, and more. And the more you have over time, and that's the way time matters here, right? The better, the higher level you can get. The most interesting thing, though, is DTED and designation in terms of the insurance coverage they provide is no different. So one of the primary reasons people want DHS Safety Act certification is not just because it's supposed to validate a technology works, right? But more importantly, it provides you liability coverage. If something does happen and you've got DHS Safety Act certification, you, the venue, are not responsible. Either insurance claims and payouts and things like that come from the DHS.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like an insurance policy. Now, there was a call a month ago, with the DHS, the pro sports teams, and various legal organizations, vendors and others weren't allowed to participate. And there's a very interesting debate going on about DHS. DHS doesn't measure anyone against a standard. So is it better for us to make sure that we meet all the security standards, NILAC, NIJ, the NHL, NBA, NFL standards of exactly what they need for the stadiums, or DHS? Because DHS doesn't have a standard. So for argument's sake, let's say that I had a product that I said, it's blue, right? Or I only catch AK-47s. And some people have deployed me because all they want to catch is AK-47s. And I apply to the DHS and the DHS says, oh, well, you've got 10 customers and they've used it for a year, longevity and time, right? Therefore, yeah, you're approved. But the leagues want more than AK-47s. They want all the way down to 3-inch knives.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's this debate going on right now that does the standard need to be rewritten? And a lot of companies are getting approved right now, but everyone's saying approved against what? Does it meet our league need?
Yeah.
And so there's this conversation that's going on. Now that's not going to get resolved in the next year or two. So we're in the process. We've gone through a couple of iterations with the DHS. We have no idea how long it's going to take, quite frankly, because nobody can predict that, right? It might be a month, might be a year. It's impossible to understand how quickly the DHS, they give you dates. We'll respond back to you in 21, but they never meet their dates. It's the government. So with that in mind, we're going through that process of as aggressively as we can and pushing as hard as we can. But that's why we did things like NCS4, like we did the test with SVS, which is former US federal marshals. And we're continuing to do for every game route, we bring in a third party to do red teaming and put together as many reports to validate our technology works. Does that make sense, John?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of unsettling, I guess, a little bit that all that the certification means is that you've had your product deployed for a certain amount of time. But it is what it is. So
in terms of the one core question that you did ask that I didn't answer yet, just realized, can we still be deployed while we're still waiting for DHS Safety Act certification? Yes.
Okay.
The NHL teams don't have it, which is quite frankly one of the reasons I targeted the NHL. 21 of the 32 baseball teams don't have it. Multiple of the NFL teams don't have it. None of the MLS teams have it. There's a market out there. And in fact, it could be argued that I'll get DHS Safety Act certification faster than they will. And by virtue of the fact that they use a technology that's already certified, will help them get certified faster.
Yeah.
So there's a very healthy market for us to go out and play into.
Okay, that's great. The next question here, kind of to switch gears a little bit. You mentioned, I think in your last corporate webinar, that completing Project Recce, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah, we call it Recce.
Recce, okay. Project Recce, funded by the Canadian Department of National Defense, they asked you to productize it after kind of the test phase and after you actually delivered the solution to them. Can you elaborate on what exactly this means? And will you now be selling this product to the Canadian government and other entities as well in the commercial markets, maybe?
Yeah, so 2, 3 thoughts again, as usual, John. I've always got a couple of angles that are important here. The first is, if we think about Extract and what Extract did, Extract was not a funded business. It was a bunch of very bright, intelligent AI folks who got together, and then they went out looking for RFPs to respond to and use that to fund their salaries, costs of business, and things like that. And they were going after some very cool stuff. Projects for organ donation categorization, for all sorts of computer vision things, and things like that. So they were required, obviously, to get that AI value into the core of what we do to make our weapons detection better, which is great. And over the course of last year, we sort of narrowed their focus to make sure any of the projects that we do bid on and we get that funding for are actually aligned to what I want to do as a business overall and my strategy overall. So, for example, Recce, very, very good at identifying objects and categorizing those objects, particularly when the objects are moving and the cameras are moving. So think like a camera under the belly of an F-16 airplane. That's shooting through the sky at thousands of miles an hour. That has to be some pretty accurate AI to say, this is this kind of a tank run by this country going in this direction, and geolocating it and things like that.
Yeah.
And we did that very, very well. The projects with the DND typically have phases. There's an early phase, 5, 6 people asked to bid on it. 3 of them get the contract. You do a little early work. They pick a subset. You do the next phase. They pick a subset. You do the next phase. And you get down to one and they say, okay, you're it. We really like what you've done. Go productize this thing. And that's kind of where we are with the phase. So we're very pleased that we're doing that. I see this as highly accretive to what we're doing with Patriot One. Think about VRS. Think about now that I've got cameras on the top of each of those towers, and I can get into the cameras at any sports stadium, I can start recognizing people at a distance with the value of what Recce does with high accuracy. And I can start identifying bad actors by, say, polling a database saying that John Hyde has been banned from this NBA stadium for being a rabble-rouser, right? And, hey, the truth fits, right? and so, it adds lots and lots of, I can start getting much more value in terms of flow and movement of people in stadiums and things that can add value on top of the basic patron entry gateways, right?
Gotcha.
Now, with that same thinking, with kind of narrowing the focus of Extract, I also wanted to make sure the things that we had invested in and we're working on were things that we could commercialize and bring out to a broader marketplace. So not only can I go then sell this back to the Canadian DND, but we've already started the conversations with other countries, right? Other NATO countries about, could this add value to them, as well as start to think about the big, military contractors. Right? And they differentiate themselves because they've got this AI on board of their F-16, right? And then we're looking at it as, okay, now do I add value add on top of all the stadiums I'm going to? So that's a long answer to a short question of, yes, we're looking to commercialize this. And it's nice that it's been funded by someone else and it's accretive and aligned to our business strategy.
Gotcha. All good things there. Next question, to go back to kind of, the offering that you guys did, we did see a lot of insider participation in that offering. And we've seen a lot of insider buying just outside of that offering as well. So I think it's safe to say that you and your management team probably think the stock is undervalued at its current levels. If you could take a second to maybe step inside the minds of the average Patriot One investor, what do you think maybe the main things are that investors are kind of currently undervaluing at the moment, if you do think that the stock is undervalued?
Yeah, well, it's not hard to step in the mind of the investors right now, because I probably had about 50 emails from investors this week going, what are you doing about the stock price? Get more press out there, right? It's kind of interesting, though, and my comment to the investors is, look, Patriot One is not some unique snowflake that's going to be immune to what's happening in the rest of the world. The whole stock market is crashing, right? Companies have been around for a long, long time. Apple, Dell, all these guys, no one's immune to it. Cisco, as well as the small startups. The small cap space is actually getting crushed right now, absolutely crushed in the marketplace if you look at it. And what's going on in the world with inflation, with Ukraine, with Shanghai, all these kinds of things. Shanghai shut down the whole city of 25 million people, for those who don't know, because they had another outbreak of COVID. And there's a whole bunch of shipping boats, right? Supply chain boats who are sitting offshore there. It almost looks like another continent, right? There's these macro trends that are going on. They're affecting the overall stock market globally. And Patriot One isn't immune to that, right? There's no magic wand we have. I was talking to my investment bankers earlier this week saying, look, we got some press announcements on some customers we'd like to put out. What do you think? And they were actually advising to not do it because they said it would be irrelevant, right? And probably would not move the shares at all because of all the other noise and what's going on in the marketplace right now. And so we have to, consider this. On the one hand, I want to keep informing our customers, our investors of what we're doing. But on the other hand, if it's not going to move the shares, am I benefiting my investors? From a stock point of view, I do think we're undervalued. We just had a conversation about OVG, for example, right? And there's many, many other things that are going on in the company. They're incredibly positive. We turned around the smart gateway based on, the feedback our customers said of the things we needed to do in about 4 or 5 months, right? It took Chea 4 years to build their OpenGate product, right? And so the company's iterating incredibly fast and responding to customers. I was standing beside one of the senior executives from the NHL at a game 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and he looked at me and said, I'm blown away. We told you guys what we needed and you guys delivered it, and we didn't think you could. And not only did you deliver it, like it just seems like that conversation was 2 weeks ago. And so we're delivering very, very good things. I do believe we're undervalued. Now, you got to be careful. I'm not a financial advisor. So anyone on this call who's hearing me right now should go talk to your own financial advisor, because I'm not a registered financial advisor, okay? I'm just giving you Peter's view. I do think we're undervalued, not only relative to the stock market collapse that's going on, but relative to the position of what we're doing to the product, the response rate we're seeing from the customers right now, and some of the bigger, more macro things in terms of relationships that we're building.
Okay, that's good to hear. It's always good to hear a CEO that believes in the stock and thinks that it's going to go higher.
Yeah, and but let's be honest. I'm going to be very open and very transparent as much as I can with its shareholders. We're building our business. It's important to me personally that we build our business on integrity, right? Honesty and transparency. This market is littered, unfortunately, with a lot of snake oil and basically false marketing and advertising. Every tech industry that I've ever worked in, these are long relationships. The smartphone's been around for 20 years. I'm an Android user. I've been an royal Android user for 20 years, right? We're going to build relationships with these customers based on integrity and trust that are going to last us 20 years and just keep growing and growing and growing, right? So having said that, is everything perfect at Patriot One? No. Are there a bunch of contracts that should have signed last quarter, would like to sign this quarter, or this quarter, last quarter? Sure. But those are the same things that are happening where customers are like ready to go, but then all of a sudden, okay, we're seeing a market meltdown. Let's look at this one just a little longer. And so it's hard to be perfectly predictable on things, right? As a business, we're very healthy. I like our products. I like our people. I like our relationships with the customers. And those alone give me a lot of comfort in the future of the company.
Okay. As far as next question goes, and I know, this is dependent on a lot of things and there may be, some things that you don't want to comment on, but can you give us maybe any more information around current headcount? Anything that you can give us around maybe how much hiring you expect to have to do in the future, anything around that?
Actually, you know what, John? I'm not going to give you that number, primarily because it's not important. It's kind of an irrelevant measure of the success of a business, right? Think of it this way. We're a software company. We're a hardware company. It's a different mix of skills and people. And so measuring my headcount versus, say, another company that's entirely software or another one that's entirely hardware, it's kind of a relevant measure. The measures that are important to me are growth of bookings, right? And our ability to convert those bookings to revenues. Every company's different skills, right? Particularly different stages of your maturity, right? We might be over-investing right now and causing cash burn as a result because we see a growth opportunity. But our headcount fluctuates quite a bit also, up and down. We win a contract like Recce, and to serve that, we're going to bring in more headcount, but they may be temporary or contractors or consultants, right? I may be looking at things like training. I could put that in-house, or I could use third parties to deliver that. Is that my headcount or not? And part of my costs. So, it's a little bit of an irrelevant measure, right? Do I see us growing headcount? Definitely, but I'm going to do it judiciously as required to serve the customers and accelerate growth. Simple example, the more and more customers we find that we deploy to, the more we're finding that we need good field service engineers to help them implement and architect. Even if we've got partners to assist with that too, there's sort of a degree of expertise required. So you'll see us investing in those areas that are going to help accelerate business faster.
Okay, that works as an answer. That's good to hear from me. The next question, and I'm pretty sure you can answer this one. Have you had any installations of the new smart gateway yet? And have you had any firsthand customer feedback that maybe you can pass along to us?
Yeah, where we are in the maturity cycle of the smart gateway is we built a bunch of prototype products. Those have been deployed with customers, either in demos or deployment situations. And the feedback has been very, very good. I'm really pleased. In fact, last week, we were at the Moody, and I was personally at the Moody, and some of the security staff were coming up to me and they're saying, "Oh, you're back. This is great. Now I can just sit back and do nothing." They loved it. They loved it. In fact, the next time I'm there, I'm going to go do a bunch of, man in the street interviews, right? Kind of like Jay Leno used to do. The feedback's really good. I think there was like 9 walkthrough metal detectors and one of our lanes at one of the entrances, because they're deploying in phases. So they put it the VIP entrance in the suites, right? And then we'll slowly start covering the rest of the stadium. It's a pragmatic and smart way for people to do things. If they take out too much, they're going to choke on it. And so we were getting more people through our lane than half the walkthroughs. And so they were steering everyone from the walkthroughs over to our lane, right? We actually had someone walk through. It was a couple and then 3 guys, about 20 minutes apart. And the couple walked through and they said, "Yeah, we saw you here. So we kind of went over here because we saw you at the John Mayer concert. And yeah, this is much better," right? And so we get people actually looking for your lanes to go through, right? And scanning up and down the line and go, "Oh yeah, go there, right?"
Yeah.
And then 3 guys did the same thing. It was great. It was fabulous. And, I was walking around pretty proud that night. So it's working well. We have to get one final certification on it. Think of it like a UL certification. And as soon as that happens, all the backlog of the demand that we've got is going to start getting units shipped to them.
Nice. Good to hear. As far as the customers that you currently have, seeing that your main focus is stadiums, arenas, and entertainment venues, that's kind of your target market. As you've stated many times, they have the perfect fit, right? They are the most qualified customers that you have. Does this mean that the qualified pipeline you have, I think the last number that we got was about 42 million in qualified pipeline. Does that mean that most or all of that is or are these types of customers, since you're talking about a qualified pipeline? Or, would you consider other customers within that qualified pipeline?
Yeah, it's a great question, John. So look, as we mentioned on some other calls, like our primary target is going after those stadiums, live entertainment events, and things like that. And it's market segmentation strategy 101. Think of it this way: stadiums has a budget, knows how to run security operations, right? Has staff, wants to serve their customers better, wants to cut their budgets. Product fits perfectly. Go.
Yeah.
Schools. Nobody likes shooting in schools. Let's face that. But no school has a budget to do this today. And the decision makers are like 8 layers thick, and they involve a lot of government organizations and things like that. So the decision making is slower. And they've got to fight for the budget versus other things they might want to spend it on, right? More complex selling process. I want to get as much revenue as fast as I can for not only our company, but for our shareholders. So I'm going to go where there's a lot of money and people with big checks. There's one stadium, the guy looked at me and says, "I want to give you a big check. Just show me the product works first." Okay. And anyhow, so it's nice to have those moments. When I look at our pipeline though, so while that's our outbound focus, okay, that doesn't mean we aren't getting inbound requests.
Okay.
Both OIG and Kia were not companies we chased. They were ones who came to us and said, "Hi, we're looking for a solution. Can we talk?"
Mm-hmm.
So of our pipeline, probably about 50-50 are stadiums and those live entertainment venues, and about 50% are other, right? Falling in other categories: manufacturing, distribution, healthcare, a bunch of schools calling us right now, which I think is a secondary effect of others' marketing programs, right? And so great. Go and market away. I'll take your leads, right? And so I'd say it's about 50-50 mix.
Okay. Okay. Good to hear that you're getting marketing from other people. That's free advertising.
Exactly.
When it comes to the backlog, just a quick question here. We've seen kind of a metric that you've given about signed agreements pending successful pilots.
Yeah.
Can we expect to see that metric in future earnings reports?
Yeah, I think it's important that we do that because there
Okay.
are a lot of customers who have this kind of try and buy mentality. This is new. They want to make sure it works in their environment, even if
Mhm.
they use in 10 other environments just like theirs. Everyone, it's fascinating to me. Um, we were one city and 3 different pro sports teams came and saw the gear and they all loved it. And 2 of them said, now I need to do a trial in my environment. It's like, you just saw it here. It's actually the same fans who are going to your games too. And so they all want to do a little bit of that try and buy just to make sure everything's dialed in right for their environment. And so you will see this kind of that metric, and it's something we will continue to report on.
Okay. So next question here, now that you do have the smart gateway, do you see the majority of your customers going with that product, regardless of whether they're in your target market with stadiums there, or do you see kind of differentiated versions of the MSG that you still plan to sell other than the smart gateway product?
Yeah, we do see variants of the product which will be more segment specific.
Okay.
Okay. Simple example. I talked earlier about stadiums versus schools and appealing marketplaces. There are unique requirements of schools that, while we have a core product that could serve a school well, depending on the security operations, people, process, technology things, there are some features I'd like to add to make it a little more applicable to a school. And so you could see a variant of that core smart gateway that's a little more targeted there. There are some other places like commercial locations, right? We have a lot of customers who want to place these into large lobbies, but they're looking for certain things in the form factor and other functions and capabilities. So we could see slight variants. So there's a core product with slight variants. Think of it like, I go buy my, I don't know, Audi A6, and they got the prestige model, they got the this model, and they got the that model. There's small variants to serve slightly different segments of markets.
Makes sense. Getting into kind of our last couple questions here. You've got, I believe, the 4th episode of Talking Physical Security with Peter Evans coming up later this month, and it's going to be with the Prevent advisors from Oakview Group.
Mhm.
I don't want you to spoil the episode, but can you maybe give us a preview of kind of this segment, what you'll be talking about, who the Prevent advisors are, maybe a little bit of information around that?
Yeah, so I'm not going to tell you the whole core of the podcast because otherwise people won't listen in, and that lowers our marketing value, right? But Prevent Advisors, the guys at Prevent Advisors, David Bourne, Scott Anderson, Jen, JT. JT's amazing. I mean, these are really smart people, and they've been hired by the pro leagues. They've been hired by people like the Olympics, these sorts of things, to provide the security strategy, to do the red teaming, to provide training. They're incredibly well respected. I don't think I met a person on the planet who doesn't know who these individuals are by name. They're very, very good at what they do. And I've been very fortunate to have worked with them at some stadiums and some events. They actually did a ton of red teaming up for us. They did a lot of work on behalf of the NBA to test our product at places like the NBA All-Star Game, the California Classic, and things like that. Very smart, very creative too. The kinds of things they did to try and break our system, right? Carrying little bags of nails and ball bearings and things like that to see if we detected it. They're fascinating, smart, highly respected individuals across the entire sports and live entertainment industry. And so I thought, look, they've probably forgotten more than the cumulative knowledge of the rest of the industry about what good patron screening technology looks like and things that people should think about and know about. So let's have them on to share some of that best practices insights with all of our customers.
Sounds good. That's kind of it for my questions, but if you have any final comments, anything you want to say to Patriot One investors, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my first comment to the investors is, look, guys, I've seen all your emails, right? And some of them are kind of obvious. Hey, Peter, shouldn't you be marketing to this? Got it. Didn't fall off a turnip truck yesterday, right? Some of them are very viable and very valid. And I want the investors to know, like, we are killing it in terms of as much time and effort as our business plan allows us to deliver without overly burning the cash flow. You know, we intentionally cut back the cash flow to a third of what it was previously, so we can stay focused on doing the right things, not everything. Okay, we can't do everything, right? We would just run out of cash too fast. You know, I'm remaining incredibly bullish on the business, right? If I wasn't, I wouldn't be here, right? I love getting out with customers. I walk around with so much pride when people like at the Moody run up to me and say, "Thank God you're here. We love you guys." It feels so good. So I'm really bullish about the business. I really like the people in our company. We've got some really good, dedicated people, some of the smartest I've ever had a chance to work with. The market's choppy, right? April was slower than I desired, right? And it was just like, you know, stop this craziness in the stock market, right? We're navigating our way through all sorts of different things, right? And we're navigating through the market meltdown, the stock market meltdown, right? And things like that. But the interest is still there, right? I mean, I'm looking at my calendar. I think I got 14 days on the road in 7 different cities, you know, with high demand from customers like, let's get in and have a conversation. So I remain incredibly busy. The team remains incredibly busy, and I remain incredibly bullish just because of that pull that's on us right now. You know, frankly, I wish we had more hours in the day to serve our customers more and faster. So that's kind of my, you know, unfiltered view on the world right now, sitting here on a Saturday afternoon, right? If it was a Monday or a Friday, I'd be like much more polished. But the intent of these calls, John, with you is not to be perfectly polished. It's just to see the real world of what's happening. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time. As always, I know the investors appreciate it as well. And, you know, it's my weekend, but it's your weekend too. So again, thank you for taking the time out of your day.
John, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for taking the time out too. And looking forward to the next time we can talk. Okay.
Same here. Thanks, Peter.